comes to homelessness, we've been asking ourselves the wrong question for a long time. We've asked, how do we solve homelessness? But what if the real question is, how do we return people to themselves? Because if we're honest, we've built housing, but what we haven't built were places where people can be returned to themselves with stability, healing, and belonging. The state of homelessness in the United States is dire. Today, we have over 770,000 people experiencing homelessness in the United States. That's the largest number ever recorded. Approximately 60% of those are living in tents, on the streets, and in cars. They're unsheltered, and most have endured extraordinary trauma long before they ever made it to life on the streets. PTSD, adverse childhood experiences, generational poverty, addiction, sexual abuse, physical abuse, just to name a few. And that trauma doesn't just go away because someone gets a set of keys. In fact, without deep, consistent care, it can actually worsen in isolation. And housing alone, without relational care, can actually harm the people it's actually meant to serve. We often bundle people with very different needs all into one affordable housing complex. There are several different types of housing offered in affordable housing: farm worker housing, tribal housing, elderly housing, multi-family housing. And then usually there are a set aside of what we call permanent supportive housing, and those are specifically dedicated to people experiencing chronic homelessness who are exiting life from the streets. They all get put into one model. I think that's problematic, because it's like admitting people to the hospital and giving everyone the same treatment plan, except some people show up looking for routine tests, and some people show up in full cardiac arrest. Someone who has survived homelessness and the trauma of life on the streets needs ICU, intensive care. Permanent supportive housing is supposed to offer what's called wraparound care. Well, wraparound care is something that's not mandated, it's not always consistent, and many times it's outsourced. And so it varies agency to agency, and that can mean not great service for some people. And if we're talking about the hospital analogy, think of it this way. We put someone who belongs in ICU into just a regular bed. We send their case manager, who comes a couple times a month. Maybe there's a patient coordinator downstairs that they see once in a while who will tell them where the cafeteria is, or maybe where the doctor's offices are off-site. But in ICU, when someone's bedridden and hooked to an IV, the chances of them accessing those services are slim. And so think about how when we pluck someone off the streets and into affordable housing, maybe they have mental health issues, maybe they have substance abuse issues. Now we've put them in full isolation. I call it solitary confinement. We send their case manager a couple times a month, and someone collects their rent once a month. And then we wonder why people aren't accessing their services. Because sometimes they don't have the energy, wherewithal, or understanding of even how to access those services to begin with, not to mention transportation. And then we blame them for not accessing the services, and we wonder why people fall through the cracks. This model is not care. It's abandonment with a roof. At Salt and Light, the homeless services agency I founded in 2019, we built something different, a community for belonging, healing, and safety. We'd been dreaming of creating a place where people weren't just housed, they get healing and transformation. The neighborhood village is the embodiment of that dream. It's a 53-unit facility created specifically for permanent supportive housing units, only for people who experienced chronic homelessness. But we didn't stop at housing. What we did was create a fully relational hub with whole person care on site so that people could access services right where they live. We created something called the Salt and Light Way. That's our brand of wraparound services. It's a 6-pillar model of whole person care. Those 6 pillars include care support, so case management, coordination, peer support, mental health, recovery services, group services, and trauma-informed care, physical health. So we actually bring on mobile health units right on site and mobile dental units so folks can access medical care after walking right outside their door. We also offer skills, employment access, and educational services. We have a workforce on site where folks can work under our care until they're ready for the workforce at large. They also can access educational and life services like financial literacy, hygiene classes, and then there's always pathways to education. We also offer nutritional care. Nutritional care would include trips to the grocery store, trips to the farmer's market, help in the garden so people can grow their own wholesome, nutritious food. We have food distributions and culinary training right on site. And last, we have community engagement. This is my favorite one. And that can include holiday parties, birthday parties. We celebrate everyone's birthday at the village. It can include bingo night, yoga, open mic night, worship night, church services, all on site. Healing happens in the most unexpected places, and we know that it happens in community. You might be wondering, how does something like bingo night fit into this model of care? Well, let me tell you a story. So we have a neighbor who has been homeless, or was homeless, since 2017 before she came to the village. She's elderly. She hasn't seen her family in over 5 years. That isolation led to deep resentment and hopelessness. When she saw we were having bingo night, she thought, well, I really don't like people, but maybe I'll win something. So she came to our bingo night. We host bingo night at round tables because we believe in community and we want people to get to know one another. That first night, no big moments. She just played her game, won a few rounds, traded around markers. No big fanfare. But the next time we hosted, she showed up. And the next time, and the next time. And see, we had not seen her out of her home much since she moved into the village, other than to sit on her porch and yell at people for driving too fast in the village, including myself. So the next time we saw her come to a bingo night, I went up to her and said, I'm really glad you came. And grumpy, she took a drag from her cigarette and she said, I don't really like people. I'd pretty much given up on people. But I thought, well, I like bingo, and who knows, maybe I'll win some. And then I turned out, I kind of like some of these people. They're kind of fun. So she started making friends. And then when we had a movie night with kids, and we have 17 kids who live in the village, she came to movie night with the kids. And then she showed up at the medical truck and started having some of her medical needs met that hadn't been met in years. What started with a game turned into connection. She started showing up for herself and for her community. And that is what wraparound care looks like. That connection created a spark of healing, wholeness, and trust. It doesn't always begin with a clinic or a counseling session. And here's what's different at the Neighborhood Village. We don't just send people across town and have them chase down help. We bring it to them right where they are. Because when services are nearby and offered with dignity, people show up. People come when we bring the help, and the people to them. And here's the thing. When we care for people in community, people stay. The revolving door from streets to home to back to the streets again begins to stop. One missing ingredient in government programs and other services that we've seen around the county and the state is Forge Family. It's something we came up with on our own, and we know that people who've experienced homelessness have experienced so much loss, and in many cases, the loss of their family and support. So one really special thing at the village is something we call missional residency. And our missional residents are people who live under our mission, which is to transform the lives of people experiencing homelessness. And they walk beside people that are their neighbors. They live in the same neighborhood, and they're there when our staff goes home. They're there when the ambulance needs to be called. They're there when someone's cat gets sick. And when we send people to the hospital, we don't just send them in the ambulance. We go with them. We advocate for them at the hospital. And when they come home to open arms, warm food, warm hugs, and care that does not end with a clipboard. When people relapse, and many people relapse, we walk with folks and get them back on the road to recovery. We don't shame them. We don't scold them. We know recovery is slow, human, messy work. Last year, we had a neighbor who relapsed and went missing for several days. He ended up being tracked down to a trap house, and our neighbor care department actually went out to that dangerous trap house and brought him home. And when he came home to open arms, and the message that said, "You still belong here. We're with you." Something I hear often is, you can only help people who want to help themselves. Okay, I think that's partially true, but I think we miss one large step when we're considering that. It's really hard for folks to help themselves when they're drowning in despair. The definition of despair is that tomorrow will look just like today, and that belief is pervasive. So what we do is we show up over and over and over again, person to person, human to human, heart to heart, until the person in front of us can start to imagine a different and better tomorrow. So for all you numbers people out there, I know you're probably asking, well, isn't this expensive? This sounds like a really expensive model of care. Well, yeah, it is. Because people heal people, and people need to feed their families, and those things cost money. But you know what's more expensive? Not to provide this level of care. Because the average cost of the revolving door from streets to homes to streets again is astronomical. The average cost per person experiencing homelessness ranges, but it ranges from about $35,000 to $100,000 per year per person. And for those folks who are accessing medical care and utilizing the ER for their primary care, that costs the healthcare facilities or a model $44,000 more per year per patient. That is expensive. And that's not even talking about the cost of law enforcement, the judicial system, cleanups, the municipalities, and society at large. This means an upfront investment in care, and it actually means public dollars are saved. So this isn't just about compassion, this is about common sense. And it's really about dignity. And sometimes it looks like an unbroken cookie, because at Salt and Light, we have a rule. No broken cookies, no stale leftovers served to our neighbors. That is radical hospitality, one of our guiding principles. And radical hospitality says, there you are. So many service agencies come in and say, we're here to save the day, but when we say, there you are, we see you. Think of the difference that makes, and can you hear the difference? I know I can. Before people can be restored to housing, they need to be restored to themselves. And they have to remember that they matter. One really special thing we have at the village is my favorite part of the village, and it's called our memorial garden. It's such a special place, and it's a place where we honor the deceased, yes, but it's a beacon of hope for the living. Because when someone sees their friends who've had no family, no friends, no one, get loved out of this life, it's life-changing for them. Because one little known fact, one of the greatest fears of a person experiencing life on the streets is that they will die alone, unseen, unknown, unloved, uncared for. Talk about despair. That has to be one of the loneliest, most disconnected pieces of being a human being there ever could be. To think you don't matter. But when they watch their friends get loved right out of this life and into the next, they begin to think, maybe I matter too. And that is when healing begins. Because they begin to believe their lives matter too. And when people believe they matter, they begin to heal. And when they begin to heal, they begin to help others heal. Because cherished people begin to cherish themselves. Held people learn to hold others. This is how community grows. Not through grand gestures, but through small, sacred ones. Repeated consistently and in love. At Salt and Light, we don't just build houses, we build belonging. And that is the secret sauce, because true belonging isn't about compliance. It's not about getting fixed. It's about people coming and being welcomed exactly as they are. Their stories, their brilliance, their scars, their brokenness. Because belonging says to a person, you don't have to earn love to be treated well. You don't have to earn love with good behavior. You don't get discarded for relapsing or struggling. You are still a part of us, even when it's messy. That's the message. We will wait with you. We will believe for you until you can believe for yourself again. Human to human, heart to heart, shoulder to shoulder. That is how we love people. The U.S. has spent tens of billions of dollars on homelessness this year and in the last 5 years alone. We don't need more housing projects with a one-size-fits-all approach. We need human projects, because people heal in relationships. I'll say it again, people heal people, and that is what we are building, places where people can be together in community, where people who've experienced so much trauma can be safe, seen, valued, and are free to become. Because when they are cherished, they can start to cherish themselves and dream a better life. And when someone belongs, they don't have to prove that they don't. And when someone is held, they rise, sometimes slowly, sometimes with setbacks, but they rise. And that is enough. If we want to solve homelessness in America, we don't need more housing. We need more communities that heal people. So that's the invitation. Let's build human projects. One person, one place of belonging at a time. Thank you.